All right, so we've gone through a lot of the program design framework, R7, doing kind of like that 10,000 foot view, as well as, again, principles. And now I wanted to go through examples. I mean, look, this is the reality is like you want to see stuff in the real world. So we're going to go through a bunch of different, kind of mock programs for different clients that, again, you might see here at Vigor Ground Fitness and Performance. And what I'll start with too, like I'm going to cover the warm up. I do want to go over this. There's going to be a bunch of resources kind of attached to this as well. But if you saw the R7, there's release, there's reset, there's readiness. The other way that I just like to have like a coach think about it when they're designing a program is release, mobilize, activate, CNS prep. Now, look, it starts with this. Most clients that we're coaching, if it's not somebody that's, pro athlete, has more time, it's going to be around 60 minutes. Again, like we know at Vigor Ground, the program might be 15 or so minutes, but it also might be 70 minutes, right? But it's going to be around there. The reason why I say that is because your warm up, it has to be adjusted to it can't be a 30-minute warm up for most people. Although in that PowerPoint presentation you saw me do, for somebody that's a very, very deconditioned beginner client, you could do 30 minutes of a warm up because that is actually going to be exercise for them already. It's going to be physically demanding. So take that into account and think about that, pie chart that I showed, how that might look like. But on the release side, your goal is to show the client the first time through what they're going to be doing on the release section, which means like foam rolling, soft tissue work, lacrosse balls, things of that nature. So again, for most people, that is going to be things like foam rolling quads, right? And again, there's videos on going a little bit more detail into it, but it's going to be quads, TFL, glutes, calves, definitely lats and triceps for a lot of people, right? So think about most programs are going to be full body programs. You don't want to spend too much time on this though. So this is like a 3 to 5 minutes. If people want to do more, cool. Like show them this and go like, hey, when you come in, you're going to be going through this sequence yourself every time. And a lot of times that's what's going to happen with the warm-ups anyways. Okay. But for foam rolling, your soft tissue release, again, if they have really wound up upper back, think about lacrosse balls, right? Rolling the lacrosse ball, doing like pin and stretch techniques. So showing them those drills, giving them in about 4 to 6 different areas. And again, in that Word doc example that I showed, you can kind of see that inside of there. Now, also, inside of Train Heroic, I'm going to do kind of module for the Train Heroic that you guys will get associated with it to see how quickly you can build your dynamic warm-ups because you're using the Vimeo library that I created, and that Vimeo library has a lot of different dynamics warm-ups in there anyways. But again, 4 to 6 different areas usually is pretty good. 3 to 5 minutes. And you don't want to spend like 30 to 45 seconds per area. If somebody feels really good foam rolling and doing it for longer, cool, no problem. Just let them know like, hey, come 10 minutes ahead of time so you can spend some more time on that. So that's your release, right? Again, releasing the tissues per se. And by the way, if it's Theraguns, if it's any type of vibration technology, any of that kind of fits into there. From there, it's mobilize, right? Again, working on mobility. Now, listen, this is again, general thing. We do want to build these things for individuals, but let's be real. Most people have very tight hips, right? So we want to improve hip extension. We want to be able to, again, for most people, internal, external rotation, not great. So we're going to work on that, right? We want to get thoracic rotation and extension. Ankles are going to be tight most of the time, right? So just think about these kind of main things that we want to work on. So I will give an actual example of the mobilize part. When we talk about it's very simple, you've heard things like go from simple to complex, from slow to faster, from, again, ground-based to standing and kind of like combine. That's all good and true. But again, we want to take into account that the warm-up's probably going to be around 10 minutes, right? 10 minutes is a good kind of marker for where it's going to be at. So imagine that, like if we go through those exercises, hamstring switches. Okay, so let's say that's 6 per side. That's like laying on the floor, right? Punching the hamstring up to the ceiling, opening that up, mobilizing that. So again, just example here. Then would go maybe a 90-90 external rotation, internal rotation of the hips. So that's like being on the floor in that 90-90 position. And again, getting 5 to 6 reps per side. From there, world's greatest stretch or Spider-Man lunge with thoracic rotation. Let's just go rotation right here. That's going to be 5 per side. Right, so we know which one that is. It's like down on the ground, Spider-Man lunge, right? We're opening up. Okay, from there, squat to stand. Do 6 to 8 of those. Maybe a windmill for upper back times 6 per side. And then we might do a side lunge with glide times 5 per side. Right, so if we're going through this, for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we're kind of constantly moving through that, this is going to take us about, again, 6 minutes, 7 minutes, 8 minutes. Activate. And again, a lot of times like this can hide activation stuff in there. But for activation, we might do a tie sit, glute bridge, right? So we got hips, we got glutes, band pull apart. Imagine 5 tie sits per side. Glute bridge, we're going to go for 10. Band pull apart, we're going to go for 10. We'd go through that circuit maybe 2 times, right? And then CNS prep is just going to be, again, getting that nervous system riled up. Those things are like pogo jumps, your running drills. So pogo jumps, running drills, wide out drops. Again, things that are a little faster to get the nervous system fired up. Now, the thing is, depending on, again, where the person is as far as that goes in, if they're a brand new beginner, right, you might be cutting this down, or again, you might be spreading this out significantly further when it comes to your dynamic warm-ups. Like, and that's the thing that you kind of have to tune in as far as, you know, where is the person, right? And if it's a pro athlete, hey, like this might be spread out significantly longer because they got an hour and a half and we want to do longer on this. Okay. But this is the way to kind of think about your dynamic warm-ups, right? Is where you place them in, release, mobilize, activate, CNS prep. And then you think about the amount of time, right? Like, for example, is it possible you do this in 8 minutes? It's a little bit short. I think for most, it should be around 10. But if somebody is more deconditioned, this could be longer and this could be a part of the workout. Like we said, that piece of the pie, right? When we look at that R7, R1, 2, and 3, right? It could be this much, but hey, for somebody that's deconditioned, it could be half of the actual workout, right? So this will be an example of kind of getting those general things in that most people need, right? Extension, rotation. I'd probably try to do some shoulder cars here too, right? So again, there's videos for this, working on that shoulder mobility, internal, external rotation. This is up to you on the assessment side of things on what they need and putting a couple things in more or less in there, right? So this is going to come off because from there, what I want to do is go into an example. So again, use that kind of 4-step process when building out the warm up and use the Vimeo library along with, there's a couple of YouTube videos that have a lot of examples of also resets, right? So there's a video with 20 resets that I did on YouTube that you can just go through and see like, hey, what do they need to work on a reset? Pick one of the resets and you're putting those in the warm-ups, right? Now, let's look at different, like very different examples of what we went through in the program design part. And you saw the templated things, right? That most people at Vigor, if they train once a week, twice a week, or 3 times a week, what is the template? Well, if they train once a week, right, this is just a reminder of what we already went through. They're just going to do one program, right? Like they're doing one semi-private. That's going to be full body. Okay. If they go twice a week, it's going to be an A, B, right? Again, full body. If they go 3 times a week, in most cases, it'll either be A, B, A, right? So meaning that's one example where it's just 2 workouts, but they rotate them. So imagine workout 1 is on Monday, workout 2 is on Wednesday, workout 1 is on Friday next week. Workout 2 is on Monday, right? So they get 2 Bs 1 week, 2 As 1 week. Or ABC. That's 3 different full body. It's also going to be full body. Now, are there going to be scenarios where we do upper, lower, full? Yes. But 90% of the time, right? 90% of the time. And I will go through some examples of going like upper, lower, full in a couple of different scenarios here. Is most of the time we're going to do all full body programming. Why? Because we know that frequency, right, for strength training and building muscle beats like more volume with less frequency, right? So again, if they're doing 3 days a week and they're going to do some type of squat, hinge, or should I say, for example, like chest, back, this, that, the other. We go more through movement patterns than we do through muscle groups. That's going to be more effective for most people, right? And also, like for most folks that are coming through, if they just do a lower body day, man, they're going to be sore for a really long time. And we don't want our clients to be too sore, right? It's supposed to enhance their life. So what we're going to do is an example of a very beginner, like very beginner. So this person either very deconditioned and their main goal is fat loss, health, better movement. And we're going to do an example program of a 2 times a week. So an AB, right? So we're going to take this 2 times a week AB template, right? So we picked that. So this is important because I'll just put like day A right here, day B right here. Now, inside of the PowerPoint presentation, I did a 12 months of sets and reps. Month 1, 3 sets of 8. Month 2, 2 sets of 15. Month 3, 3 sets of 12. 4, 5 of 5. 3 of 10, 4 of 6. The reason I wrote that out there is because, again, I mentioned I want it to be fast but effective for you to write programs. So in this scenario, we said this is a beginner. Now, these are the main kind of movement patterns that in those 2 days we want to cover for sure. Some of them will be covered multiple times, and I'll explain what we're choosing and why, right? Push. So a push horizontal, like a push-up, a bench, whatever it may be, and a vertical, right? We'll talk about vertical pressing because most people can't do it well, right? Then we got to pull horizontal and vertical. So think about like a row, TRX row, one arm dumbbell row, arsenal row, and vertical, pull downs, pull-ups, hike pull-ups, all of those different things. Then we got a squat, we got a hinge, we got a lunge, a single leg, right? Because think about a lunge is all these variations. A single leg, unsupported, could be single leg RDL, also elevation change, which is a step up. And then carries, right? So any type of farmer's carries, locomotion, which is movement, sleds, crawls, sprints, all of those things, right? If we start here, and if you look at that R7 model, even again, this person hasn't trained a lot, but we still want to do some athletic explosive things, right? To develop power, elasticity. But because this person is a beginner on day 1, we're going to go and superset 2 explosive things. Okay. So let's say this person, even a box jump is again out of the question for them at this point in time. So they may do a Dynaball scoop toss. Again, they're very deconditioned, so we're just going to go 2 sets of 5. Okay, so taking a Dynaball, throwing up as high as they possibly can, right? And then they're going to go a med ball wall throw, also 2 sets of 5. Again, you might say, hey, that's not a lot. It's not, but for this person, again, they're just kind of getting in the groove. You know, by week 3, we'll probably go 3 sets of this. From there, we're going to use supersets. Again, first of all, this is more of a, they want to build lean muscle. They want to get leaner. So it's like a fat loss program. Remember what we said, like first month, 3 sets of 8. We realize and we've assessed that this person can do a goblet squat, right? They can do a goblet squat with a wedge. So we're going to go goblet squat, 3 sets of 8. Also, beginners, they don't need to go close to failure or close to their, max loads to get adaptation, which is great. We're really focusing on quality of movement. Yes, we want to challenge them, but again, beginners can basically have adaptations with as little as 50% of, I think even 40% of 1 rep max, right? So again, in the beginner phases, we're using this program as an example. So in the beginner phases, quality movement, range of motion, again, owning those reps, and again, challenging enough for most people is going to be, but you don't need to get close to failure, right? Yeah. We're going to superset a squat, right? With a horizontal row. And for this person, the TRX row for 3 sets of 8 is going to work well. Okay. From there, 3A, 3B. So think about this. If we are doing a squat pattern here, I want to do some type of single leg or lunge that's more, I would say, posterior based, right? So think hamstrings, glutes. So this person can't do they don't have the stability yet to do a single leg RDL or anything like that. So we're going to do a sprinter lunge, right? Which is really kind of a regression of an RDL, right? Because the leg is down on the ground. So they have that stability and they're just loading those hips up more. Okay. And then from there, we're going to do a push up. It's going to be elevated on a barbell. Again, 3 sets of 8. Notice everything is 3 sets of 8 here for the power part. Do you have to do this? No, but this makes it very, very easy. And we're going to explain, right? Because it's like block 1, month 1, going to month 2. And then 4A, 4B here. By the way, one quick thing too. If they're very deconditioned, all of these could be 2 sets, right? And obviously this is like something that you make a call on. You could also go 3 sets of 8 here, 2 sets of 8 on the second set of exercises, because you can tell that this is going to be a lot for them. So we're going to add sets as they build their capacity, right? Their general physical preparation. So, and from here, this is where I like to think about weak links, things that are usually weaker for people. So that's going to be hamstrings, glutes, upper back, core, right? Again, also, I call it YWY, which is whatever you want, meaning like if somebody wants to work on their arms more or something like that, this is where you'd plug that in. But our general kind of in the templates, we work weak links. And this is where we might go something like a glute bridge. We do a plank and a band pull apart, for example. Okay. This would for sure be just like 2 sets here. Now, the weak link stuff, you can kind of veer away from these numbers, and this might be, 2 sets of 12, okay, of each one of these. Plank might be 30 seconds. So now we got to program it again. This is important. If it's an extremely deconditioned person, it might be 2 sets of this, 2 sets of this, 1 set of this, right? They do their warm-ups, they do their throws, and you can tell because, again, you're coaching what you see plenty of times. Like you make a program, you do an assessment, and you're like, wow, okay, cool. Like I'm going to build this program. And then as you're coaching them, you're like, wow, they're not going to make it through what I outlined, and you're going to regress this. Again, our whole goal is progressive overload over time, right? Through that 4-week, 6-week program, we're just getting them a little bit better. They're lifting a little bit more weight, and they can add a little bit more reps. Now, even again, in the PowerPoint presentation, I showed you the progression model that we can use, right? We can go from 8, for example, a goblet squat, you'd go from 8 reps to 9 reps to 10 reps, right? They get to 11 or 12 reps, and now we go back to 8. And here's the thing, don't be afraid to take this longer, right? So if somebody's continuously progressing on the same program and doing well, it doesn't have to be only 4 weeks. It could be 6, it could be 8. As long as they're not getting, if at 4 weeks they're asking you when the new program is coming, that means they want a new program. They want some more novelty, and that's when you would switch it up. Our baseline model is switching up programs every 4 weeks. But again, I tend to, for beginners, do it even longer if they are getting stronger, they're progressing, they're getting more reps, because everybody likes to get better, okay? So again, there's nuances here, and I wanted to explain those nuances. So this would be a day 1, an A, right? So if we started A on B, we'd still want to stick with some explosive stuff. And maybe here, we'd go a fast prowler push, right? Why? Because they're not ready for sprinting yet. Whoop. But 2 times 15 yards, right? Getting people used to, again, being faster, but we don't want them sprinting yet because their just tissues aren't ready for it yet. So we put a little bit of weight on the prowler and a sled, and we have them push as fast as possible for 15 yards. And then we can do rotational Dynaball throws against the wall. Go 2 sets of 8, for example, right? So we're just teaching them to throw, right? Also 2 sets. Now, since we did a goblet squat on day 1, here, we'll do a kettlebell deadlift, maybe even trap bar, right? It depends on, are they ready for the trap bar? Again, 3 sets of 8. Since we did a horizontal push here, we're going to do something a little bit more vertical. Now, if they did not pass the overhead flexion test, it means they probably shouldn't be doing a pure overhead press. But we got options here. We can do a landmine press, for example, right? So landmine press, 3 sets of 8. It could be with the Viking handle, right? So they're doing it both at the same time, getting that protraction, right? So protracting the scapula. Here, we're then going to do some type of lunge. And since they're a beginner, we're going to go static lunge for 3 sets of 8 per side. We're going to do something more of a pull down position. So half kneeling lat pull down with a cable, 3 sets of 8. And here, we're going to go back to weak links again. So valve slide, hamstring curl, maybe a side plank. Again, they're a beginner. And a Y raise. Again, this might be 1 to 2 rounds. So take into account what I said earlier as far as like how much volume they're doing on this, right? Because so Y raise is like leaning forward on a chest supported bench. And then we're just teaching them, right? And getting that mid to low trap there. So here's your A and B day, right? And again, this goes through fast, right? They're going to do their scoop toss, straight to med ball wall throws. They're going to rest for 45, 60 seconds, do it again, right? Goblet, squat, TRX row, superset. So you get 30, 45 seconds in between, minute and a half afterwards. And then again, paying attention, because this will take, again, an hour or sub hour. And you only start adding, I would say, volume. This is why I say this is a baseline, but you're willing, this is where you regress it. You go down to 2 sets. I think a lot of times people just have it locked in. It's 3 sets of 8, but beginners, they can start with a lot less and then just kind of build up. So imagine this is a 4 to 6 week program, right? We said phase 1. Okay. So if the next time around, this is, because for fat loss and like general fitness, undulating works pretty damn well. So you're changing the rep ranges. You're going from 3 sets of 8 to 2 sets of 15. So now imagine that all of this is 2 sets of 15, right? And you could legitimately keep the same program. The power, you're not going to increase the reps on the power stuff. That's going to stay around the same. But imagine now phase 2, you'd go 2 sets of 15 goblet squats, 2 sets of 15 on the rows. What would happen? Well, you'd probably have to reduce the load, but you still challenge them at that 15 reps. Same thing with TRX rows. Same thing with the sprinter lunge. Maybe it becomes body weight because they're a beginner, right? Push-ups, what would you do? Well, you would elevate the barbell from lower to higher, right? And they would obviously still challenge themselves at the 15 reps. Again, those kind of weak link assistants, you can keep it in that 12 to 15 rep range, 10 to 15 rep range, but the juice of it, you go to 215, right? You can also obviously change the variations. So if somebody is a beginner, they can still do a hack squat. They can do a goblet squat, right? So we could change this, for example, let's say we're going into month 2 now, and we're going to go to a pendulum squat. So pendulum squat, 2 times 15. What could we do for a row? We could do chest supported row, 2 times 15. Thing about sprinter lunge could become step ups, right? We have an elevation change, and you can make it more glute dominant. Now, the reason I'm doing this because you can kind of see how simple and easy it is. From push up, we could go to dumbbell bench press, right? So DB bench press, 2 times 15, right? And then our assistance exercises, right? So you can, and on this side, we could go from trap bar to an RDL, 2 sets of 15. Landmine press, it could go just from a double to a single, or it can go to half kneeling cable press. It could go to a high or higher incline dumbbell bench press. Our static lunge maybe now becomes a reverse lunge, or half kneeling row could become like an arsenal row. And again, we can keep these like weak links the same, or we can switch those up too. But if I was moving through this fast, we have 2 months of program design done. 5-10 minutes, right? For a client. And the thing is, once you go into train heroic, because you have the drop down and you can literally type in squat, you're going to have a lot of these squat variations, right? So again, this is pretty beginnerish client. So what we're going to do is come back. I'm going to wipe the whiteboard and we'll go into quite a different example to look at, like, because the rep ranges are going to change a little bit. And we'll just kind of talk about, like, for example, an intermediate client that's been training for a couple of years and they want a mix of athleticism, strength, muscle building, and just how we've changed this up a little bit.